Hi, my name is Trè. I am a financial planner and investment advisor with TC Wealth Management and Q-Trade Advisor. A financial planner helps people just achieve their goals in life. So let's say during the course of somebody's life, there's a lot of decisions that has a big impact on the outcomes. So whether it's when you can retire, how much to save, getting insurance, protecting those people around you, planning in case something happens, all of these things can have dire consequences if you don't plan for them. And I help people make better decisions to plan for these type of things. From an education perspective, I went to school in England, and then I went to college and did accounting. So I wanted to become a forensic accountant, so like tracking money laundering and terrorist financing, things like that. And then I moved to Canada, and I'd have had to retake a bunch of classes to do that, and I didn't enjoy it enough. So I went into work for one of the big banks and got my licensing for mutual funds and stuff, and was kind of amazed by this world of wealth management, and I knew exactly where I wanted to go. And then I moved over to the credit union system and just took course after course after course, exam after exam to get my CFP, so my Certified Financial Planning designation, my Chartered Investment Management designation, and then I moved over to the wealth management side. Somebody out of high school could have done it then, but not now. So now the CFP, the Certified Financial Planning designation, requires the university degree. So that's new within the last year. So unfortunately, if you don't have a degree, you can't get it now. There are other avenues you can take, but that's by far the best one. So they did fund it, but it was more expensive than they would typically spend on somebody. So I had to prove that, it was a good investment. And the speed that I was doing these exams was a lot faster than a lot of other people take them, which meant it was a lot more expensive. So I had to get them on board. But they'll do it for people that exceptional and really want to push themselves. So obviously tracking the markets is a big thing. Global news, obviously a lot of people watch the local news. I don't really that much because my concern is more global environments. So watch markets daily, read everything on the news. I read a lot of industry material, so there's a lot of information that comes out about investment theses and different funds and ETFs and stocks and things like that. I have to filter through all of that. I have to watch the portfolios that I put together, and then that's the admin side of things. And then on the client side of things, if I'm doing planning for somebody, I spend hours on plans to make sure we're making the right decision. So every recommendation I make is always evidence-based. So I have to have a plan and the numbers to support the recommendation that I'm making. So I spend a lot of time reading up, reaffirming my knowledge, and putting together those type of plans. A really good example is going to be COVID. Any market crash, any big market event, everybody panics. And I was fortunate enough that because I was very on top of it, I knew I don't want to say weakest links, but I knew there's people that would panic with the people that I help, and it meant that I could reach out to them early. And I'm fortunate to say that I didn't have a single one of my clients, so I work with about 250 households, didn't have a single one of them sell during COVID. And that's one of the biggest mistakes you can make, is to sell during a market crash. And I can say I didn't have a single person. So that paid off hugely then. It meant that they didn't lose a bunch of money. It's one of those things that when you're dealing with people with millions of dollars, a move of 30% in the market is $300,000. So imagine losing that and never having the opportunity to get it back because you panicked and got out of the market. And that's kind of what happened to a lot of people in 2008. Where they never wanted to invest again because they lost so much money, and they didn't really. It was because they sold. I can't make decisions for my clients, but I give them all the information so that they can try to make the best decision. It's allowing people to see the consequences of their actions, not just today. So basically, if you're going to make a decision, I can tell you what that decision could look like and could impact you 20, 30 years down the line, versus what it looks like today, which is all that you and I see in our personal lives. We just see the now, and like, this is how I feel right now, is that I can help you see the bigger picture. There's very few areas that you can genuinely, truly change somebody's life. So you think of doctors and things like that, and this is added to that list. You can make a huge impact and change the complete trajectory of somebody's financial life. And that means that they can do things, they can provide their children with better chances and things like that than they had, which is a blessing, I guess, to be able to help somebody do that. So that's by far the biggest thing that keeps me going on a daily basis, is the fact that you can truly make a difference. The other side of this job is it can be very defeating. So there's people that you try to help a lot, and then they don't change something around like that. But my oldest client, they were by no means bad with money. To start with, they paid off their house very early, and then they didn't understand, they were scared of investing. And by coaching them through it and helping them make the right decisions, they're now on a trajectory that they'll retire multi-millionaires, purely from that little switch of understanding that their money needs to work for them. And something as small as that can have huge consequences, because before then they'd never invested a penny. And yeah, now they're very good investors, to say the least. So there's lots of different ways to do it. There's the typical way where people go and work at a bank. I wouldn't recommend that route. That route is very sales oriented. But when you get to a point of being a successful planner where you don't have the sales pressure, it can be one of the most rewarding careers that I know of. But it is, for some people, it's hard to get to that point. Fortunately, in the credit union system, I never had the same pressures, never had to go through that. But I know a lot of people, I know the dropout rate for advisors at like Investors Group and stuff like that is very high. So my advice would be to make sure that you get the right education, that you're not just getting the bare minimum to be able to call yourself an advisor. I think it's very dangerous if you start giving advice when you don't know enough yourself. So make sure you go work for a reputable firm that will put the time and effort into training you to become a fully fledged planner. So the minimum requirements to call yourself an advisor in Canada is a short course, and you need it to get licensed to sell mutual funds. And then from then on, you can technically call yourself an advisor. There is no real requirements there. They've been looking into changing that, but that's the current state. At that level, there's a lot you don't know. And there's so much that you don't know that you don't even know that you don't know it. And it means that the advice, when you're dealing with bigger numbers and you're helping somebody make decisions that can change the trajectory of their lives, you can miss things. But that is the bare minimum. And at that point, it is very much a sales role. When you walk into a bank, the first people that you meet are, no matter what they say, they're really sales people for the bank. They're trying to push the bank products. Compare that to somebody whose job, like myself, when you've got the certified financial planning designation, your job is to plan for these people, not necessarily just to give them products. And that is the biggest distinction. When you're there as an expert versus a salesperson, this job is very rewarding, and when you can really make a difference, and you can be confident that the advice you're giving, you've thought of everything, it's holistic, and that's kind of where you want to be. The other coin, where it's very sales oriented, in my opinion, just isn't what's best for clients. Join a firm, like an independent firm that has their own clients you can learn on them, and they will train you, and you can work under an experienced financial planner. Or would be to go with something like the credit union system, where there's not as much sales pressure, and you can really work on yourself and getting the education that you need in order to be successful. The wrong way to do it would be, some people do it, very few, would be to just go out there day one and start trying to bring in clients when you yourself don't really know how to advise them and help them properly. I was raised, like my late teen life, I was raised in the care system. So a lot of that meant that I lived with lots of different families, and I saw some people that had done very well, and some people that hadn't, and were kind of living paycheck to paycheck side of things. And I decided very early on that I didn't want to be one of those people that was living paycheck to paycheck. I saw a lot of my peers in the care system end up in not a great place, to say the least. And I decided I didn't want that. So when I got the opportunity to learn more about finance and to have it really, it changed my life a lot in a very significant way. It meant that I created a great life for myself now, which I never would have been able to do had I not learned more about personal finance. And what I found when I was in the care system was that it typically wasn't an education difference. It was more decisions that people make on a daily basis decides where they end up. Biggest examples to me for doing it the right way was a family I lived with that were they're very studious, and what they did was they built a house and sold it, built a slightly bigger one, sold it, built a few, sold it, and that's how they slowly, over a long career, built up some wealth. And it wasn't because they inherited a bunch of money, it's just because they made good decisions versus just buying brand new vehicles, buying the biggest house they could afford, and things like that. Decisions like that really make a difference to where you end up, and that's really what personal finance is all about. It's just making good decisions so that you have a better chance of ending up in a good place.